We're starting off again. Today is June the 4th, 2025. A slight interruption since the last recording. So I've forgotten exactly what I had to say, but let's go back to 1959. I'm approaching my mom. I might have said this before, so excuse me if I have. But I go to my mom and I say to her, Mom, I want to get married. Mom says, okay, Jim, when do you want to get married? I said, soon. And more or less at the same time, a little bit after this particular mom, I want to get married, I get two letters. One letter first, and it came from East Germany, from my cousin Inge. You have all met Renate and Hubert. You have not met Inge. She is proposing marriage to me. She's about 16 years old. Under East German law, cousins can get married. Then I had to write back to her and explain. I remember writing back and explaining the problems that I have. And soon after that, I get another letter from a 14-year-old girl. I want to go back in time a little bit. When I'm about 18, we have just bought our first new house, and I made friends with a bunch of young guys who belonged to the Swindon Dolphin Swimming Club. I joined the club. I was a decent swimmer and a better diver. So I coached young kids in the technique and so on, in diving. And one of my students, or one of the ones that I helped to coach, was a 9-year-old girl. And when I'm 19 years old, I go in the Air Force. I'm in there for 2 years, so I hardly ever got leave to go home and go swimming on Friday night. It didn't work that way. So for about 2 years, I had no contact with this little girl that I started coaching when she was 9 years old. When she's 14 years old, her friend is writing to me on behalf of Katie Fisher, Catherine Katie Fisher, and she's madly in love with me there, and she wants me to wait getting married till she's 16 years old.
Yeah.
Well, it didn't work out that way, but I wanted to work that in. Mum and I got married then. We're happy then, most of the time, as we are nowadays.
Well, anybody in the family who's seen pictures of your dad when you were a young guy, you were a bit of a throb there, a bit of a
Yeah.
good-looking guy.
Okay.
Would have stood out.
Yeah.
And the first house that you mentioned that the family bought, what road's that on?
Albion Street.
Albion Street.
That was the first house. It was built about 1850, 1860.
Wow.
It was row housing. If you can remember Coronation Street, when that program first started, back in the early 60s, everybody lived in that type of house. And we bought it in September 1953, and we paid £875, which is approximately a decent week's pay today.
Mm-hmm. And how many rooms in the house?
We had 3 bedrooms and an outside flush toilet. No hot water. We had cold water in the house.
Yeah.
And we had a stove. Well, we had a fireplace. Later on, we bought a stove type of thing like you put inside the opening to the fireplace.
And burning coal?
Burnt coal, wood, whatever.
So that's you're heating up your food and your water and cooking on it? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what else? So we lived in that house, and then Ava and I, we joined the Air Force. And that was in 1955, June the 28th. We joined up the same day. And we had to go to Cambridgeshire, outside of Cambridge, which is north of London. And we joined the Air Force there, spent 2 years in the Air Force. And at the end of the Air Force, I decided to go to Germany to see my granny. But before all this happened, I was working in the railway. And as a railway employee, if my work at the railway company was interrupted by military service, they had to re-employ me after I'd done my time, 2 years. And one of the entitlements that I was entitled to as a railway employee was a free ticket to travel anywhere that the British Rail, any country, had a reciprocal arrangement. Your people can travel here for nothing, and our people can travel over there for nothing, that kind of thing. So when I went to see my granny, I went all over Switzerland, France, Italy, and so on. Absolutely freebie. Didn't cost me a cent.
And to be
That's
clear, you joined the Air Force. Not,
Yes.
You weren't conscripted or anything.
No.
No. Okay.
Oh, okay, let me explain again a little bit here. We were not British citizens, but my dad, who worked for the War Department, teaching Russian to the British troops, I don't know if I brought this up before or not, it was called the JSSL, that means Joint Services School for Linguists. So my dad and 50 other Russian-speaking guys were teaching Russian to British troops so that we could listen in to Russian radio signals and being able to understand what they're saying and transcribing and so on. So he came to Ava me. I was 18 at the time, I was 19, and he said he wanted to become a British naturalized citizen. It would help his career, promotion-wise. And if we were to be naturalized at the same time, that means us children would be British, and that means we would have to do military service. Well, to Ava and myself, that suited just fine. So we became British, and we did our 2 years, like every other British. And okay, that was it.
And I mean, how did you enjoy the 2 years?
Like before we went in the Air Force or the Army or the Navy, whatever, the other old guys who'd already done their time, they kept on saying what a tough life it is and so on, you know. Other than I, we did not spend our 2 years together in the same camp.
Mm-hmm.
I was just outside of London, and he was down in Devon. If you see Bristol on the map, follow the coast downwards. He was a town called Barnstable. That's in Devonshire. And so he spent his 2 years there, as I did my 2 years. And to me, doing 2 years in the British military was a piece of cake compared to what we had done only 9 years before that.
Yeah, a walk in the park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, okay, let's just pick up from there. You come out of the service there, and you know, what does life look like when you settle back into Swindon?
We used to call it Civvy Street, civilian life.
Mm-hmm.
I go back to work in the railway, and this is after I came out June the 28th, 1957, after having done 2 years. I go across to Germany, I mentioned land. Then I come back from Germany, I go to the railway and I'm reinstated. It's more or less the same kind of job, but in a different shop office. In the shop, the latest shop office that I was in, I was a clerk working up in the shop office. The office was elevated from the shop floor. We had about 110 guys working on the shop floor.
And doing what kind of work? Well, you're an accountant.
Ours was called the Brass Foundry. There were all kinds of knickknacks, door handles and window latches or whatever that go into railway carriages and railway wagons, whatever. It was all being cast in the Brass Foundry. So we had great big massive furnaces with different metals smelted down and then poured into molds and whatever needed to be done, whatever metal to be used. And one of the guys on the shop floor was Mom's dad. So I knew Mom's dad long before I knew Mom.
Whose name was?
Jack.
Yeah.
Jack Hewer. His check number 6193. 6193. Everybody had a number.
And obviously quite a bit older.
Oh, he was
in the 40s?
Retirement age, close
Yeah.
to it.
Okay. And how did you enjoy his company? I mean,
Well, when he was on the shop floor, we had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Occasionally
Okay.
speak to him, give him his paycheck. Well, money in those days.
yeah.
Yeah. What else? Then
But just to get the chronology correct, So when we talked about in the earlier recording about you running the pub, this is yet to come.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because you haven't even met Mum
So
when you're
what
at
I
the
haven't mentioned is
foundry.
then when Harold was 12 years old, 11 years old, he went to the grammar school, and this is where he met Sally. And before that, I had been to college, and when we bought our first house in Swindon, I went to college before that. We were still living in the camp. Pardon me. We lived in the camp for 5.5 years. And as time went on, people saved their money and they bought houses and so on, but it took a while, as it did us. Yeah. Neil, pardon me?
Well, yeah. Okay, so
Where am I
Harold's
going
in
with this?
school. You're talking
Yeah.
about Sally meeting Harold,
Yeah,
so that's,
yeah,
that's
okay.
interesting.
Am I being filmed?
Yes.
Yes, so, and then I quit the railway, probably a mistake, because I could have travelled all over Europe again and again. I was entitled to that free pass that I mentioned. I could get one a year. So every year I could have had a free holiday, except for hotel fees and so on.
And what was the reason that you quit?
I was envious because I could make more money working for a different company
Okay.
that a friend of mine worked in, which I did. And this is where I met Mum.
And this
we
was at the with the
Started courting, yeah.
yeah. But was this the the turntable manufacturing?
No, that came later.
Okay. So explain. Where was this when you met Mum?
Oh yeah, it was the company that Mum worked for. It was called Fat Stock Marketing. In other words, fat stock, they bought up a lot of cattle, pigs, and so on. They slaughtered them. We had huge freezers, massive freezers, like the size of a big room, almost like a barrack type of room, full of meat. And I worked for a company called Borswick, and they were based out of London, but we carried Argentinian lambs, Australian beef, New Zealand lambs, Irish pork. This is the kind of thing that we carried. So Ginny's company and my company, they were in competition between two of them, and there were other companies like it. Maybe you've heard of Towers, Swift. These are all meat companies doing the same thing as us. For the most part, imported meat from different countries. And this is where I met Mum. We started courting. And okay, what else now?
Well, talk about those early days with Mum. Like, what would you guys do? Go to the movies? Go to dancing? Or
Yeah, well,
okay,
that's what we were young. We
Yeah.
did what normal
okay,
other young people do.
yeah,
And you've heard all a bit about the marriage. And then I was working in a company called Garrard, and they produced record players, record changers. Maybe somebody's got one in the attic somewhere. Garrard, we used to say.
And Mum stayed put with Fat Stock for the moment.
No,
Okay.
and Mum also worked at Garrett's.
Okay, so you both moved there together,
Yeah,
kind of thing.
yeah.
That's
More
interesting.
money, better prospects, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when Mum got pregnant,
Mm-hmm.
and I got a part-time job working at night in a pub. It was called the Sun Inn. If you know where Coat Water is a lake just outside of Swindon, and there's a pub called the Sun Inn, and I got a part-time job there. And
So doing a day shift at Garrod's
Yeah,
and then
I worked
doing
at
some
Garrett's,
hours.
and at night I worked there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, long hours. Anyway, I liked it. Then this opening in the club came up, and I had to apply for the job, but I had a little bit of an inside track because I knew some people there. And so we got that job. And like I said, I still had a scooter. Well,
Yeah.
what else do I want to say?
Well, let's talk about when Jimmy comes along.
All right.
And where were you living at this time?
This is just before we got into the club.
Okay.
Because Jimmy was 6 weeks old when we took the club. We lived in Albion Street.
So Mum was in Albion as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me go back to Albion Street. We bought Albion Street, like I mentioned just now, in 1953. In 1957, when I came out of the Air Force, I went to Germany. When I come back, Val says to me, why don't we go to Coatwater? So we took a bus to Coatwater and filled around, walked around, etc., whatever. She said to me, why don't we walk home from here? So we're walking towards town, going up a bit of a hill, and we're walking on the left-hand side of the road. It had a sidewalk to it. The right-hand side of the road did not. It's a major road, two-laner, but the main road to Marlborough. And on the right-hand side is Windsor Road. If you make a right, there's a subdivision in there just beginning to be developed. Roads are being put in, houses are different contractors doing whatever they do, including building a school. So we walked down Windsor Road, and when we got towards the bottom of it, on the left-hand side, everything is being built. No completed houses yet anyway. So there's this street that's got a name to it, Dorchester Road. Val says, why don't we go and have a look in here? So we go, and the road itself had been paved, even though a lot of roads at that time had not yet been paved. Nobody living there. What's the rush? So she makes me stand on a manhole cover while she's going to take a photograph of me. And she says, I want you to point there as I'm standing on the manhole cover. Point there. And after she took a few photographs, she told me what this is all about. Whilst I'm in Germany, Mom and Val and Ava had bought a lot on Dorchester Road for our house to be built there. So late in 57, the house was completed. We also had a garage, and a lot of people in those days did not yet have cars. And we paid $2,200, three-bedroom house, no basement, decent-sized lot, and a garage for £2,200. There.
And that would have been for you, Val, Harold, Ava, and Pearl.
Yeah. And my dad was working in Scotland at the time, living in an army camp. You might think by now I know nothing better than army camps. Absolutely true. We spent most of our life at that time living in army camps.
And just by the way, when was Lethbridge Road then?
Lethbridge Road was up in what used to be Old Town Swindon. Swindon, about 150 years before that, there was only the Old Town. When they started building the railway works, that employed 13,000 people, including me and Mum's dad. That's when they had to put up cheap housing. 34 Albion Street being one of them. There were hundreds of houses like that in Swindon. A real working man's town. So, what else?
So you moved into Dorchester Road.
Yes.
Jimmy's born.
Jimmy's born, and my dad, when we bought Dorchester, when I say we bought Dorchester Road, what I mean is Mum and Dad bought it. So Mum and I were living in Albion Street, and that's where Jimmy was born. In hospital, of course, but we lived in Albion Street. And then this job came along. We lived there for a short period of time. Mum was very pregnant, maybe 7 months pregnant when we moved in there.
To Dorchester, yeah.
In fact, Mum was frying my pork chops for me in the kitchen as a young girl, 17 years old. Jim, I think my water's broken. Whilst Mum was frying my chops for me. So,
never heard that before.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Okay, so what are those years like? I mean, Jimmy's obviously, you know.
Well, we're young. Everybody's
up,
happy, and
yeah,
we're having a great time. I had good friends. I'm studying to be an accountant.
Okay, like doing
I'm working at garage, going to night school, like everybody else. Even though I'd had college education, business administration is what I took.
And was that out of your own desire, or was maybe I've heard
prodded by Dad,
yeah.
Pop.
Okay, so you're unwilling, or I mean,
No,
sorry.
I like accounting.
Yeah, okay.
Facts and figures is,
Sure.
I like it.
Okay, so when you got through that, where did you end up? Or is this when the pub years start?
Yeah, that's when we took the club.
Yeah.
We were employed by the club for 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
and then we applied for. I had my eye to the future. I wanted something better than the club, even though it was good. We applied for a job in Dunstable, running a pub. So you live on the premises and you employ staff and so on. So by this time, Jim is about 3 years old. I'm 27. Mum's 21, and we got the pub. And we had a good time there. It was a beautiful pub, one of the better ones. In England, when we used to go drinking at night, we used to say, how am I dressed? Or good enough to go to that pub, but not good enough to go that one there. So you dressed according to the clientele that used to frequent that particular type of pub. A working man's club, you got dirty jeans on, that's fine. But if you were dressed in a suit, you wouldn't go to where somebody's got dirty jeans on. That a little bit of class distinction, maybe.
Yeah.
But that's how it was. Mm-hmm. And so it was a nice place. And then, well, I decided to come here.
Well, let's slow down a bit here. Yeah. So how did that start, germinating in your mind, that?
I always had the desire to go somewhere else.
And what's that? Just like exploring? I mean, to settle somewhere else.
To settle, yeah.
And what, you just felt England was somehow restricting or limiting? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we've just come. We lived 5.5 years in the camp in England.
Yeah, but here you are, moving up really and making better money all the time,
But we lived in Albion Street.
Yeah.
I didn't think much of that.
And you didn't see a way out of that? Really?
Not at that time.
Not at that time?
Yeah.
So, okay, I know through family lore that you had a number of options of places that you were possibly thinking about going, Australia, New Zealand,
Argentina,
States, okay,
South Africa, States,
okay.
England, Canada.
Yeah. I just got to say, I'm glad I wasn't South
I
Africa.
used to read a lot of statistical information. If we decided to go to Australia and we didn't like it there, how much it would cost us to fly back to England. Mm-hmm. I'll give you an example. I think at the time I had it worked out that I would have to work. Average pay in Australia, whatever it was that 58 years ago, whatever it was in those days, I'd have to work a month in order to buy a ticket to fly home. Whereas if I came to Canada, average week's pay, 1 week's pay would bring me back home. Mm-hmm. So.
Okay, and also to everybody listening, you had, through the Latvian connection, you had a bit of a heads up about, because some of them had already emigrated, right?
Yes, a lot of them had.
So you were hearing through letters, what their experience was like?
Getting back to the camp, we were there 5.5 years. A lot of my friends, they had moved on. Some to the States, a lot of them to Canada, some to Australia. And we kept in touch by letter and so on. And one particular friend of mine over here, when I first came here, I stayed with him. So we had a lot of contact, and he told me how good it was here and so on. I thought, well, that's the place for me then. But Mum was totally against it, leaving Britain at the time. Her Mum and Dad were getting old, she didn't want to go. So I came home one night time I was working as a trainee accountant. I came home, I said to lunchtime, I said, Mum, I've given my notice, we're going to Canada. And this was in 1967, just after Christmas, I think it was. Because, well, if you've given your notice, then we have no choice. We have to go to Canada. In fact, I hadn't even applied to Canada House to emigrate. So on January the 1st, 1967, I decided to go up to Canada House in London, which is like an embassy. And I knock on the door's not open. It's a public holiday in Canada, January the 1st. So I go back. That didn't work out. So I actually wrote and reapplied, or applied, got an interview. What's your medical condition? They could examine you in those days for any medical problems, not nowadays. And all right, so we came here. I stayed with a friend
Well,
of
wait a
mine.
second, if I may slow down here. You were doing this applying in '67. You know,
Yeah.
I guess I'm born around that time.
Yeah.
But okay, so you went over there on your own first, right? But
Yeah.
we touched down as a family in Canada in '69,
Yes,
April, I think,
Yes.
right? Okay.
April 9th.
So you'd done some reconnaissance before that into Toronto to see what it was like?
Oh yeah, I lived here for 9 months.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and what were your impressions there when you were finally
Well, it's
there?
a big city. I liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I worked in the factory. Ingles, the washing machine people. They made fridges, dryers, washers, air conditioners, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of a big company, Whirlpool. And so I worked there, saved my money, worked hard. I also had a part-time job working at Sutton Place Hotel on Bay Street.
Yeah,
And
talk
my
about
job
that.
was parking cars. We had 6 floors of underground parking underneath the Sutton Place Hotel.
This was on Bay Street,
Yeah,
right
Bay-
downtown Toronto.
yeah.
And you parked some cars for some notable figures, right?
Yes, I did. One of them being Harry Belafonte.
Incredible.
Can you imagine? I parked a car for Harry Belafonte. He was performing at the time, so it was a rental car by him and his entourage. And so you go up to the front door. From the front door, they call down, hey, send up a jockey, pick up a car. Because there's only so many spaces up in front of the hotel. So go up there. And the average tip in those days, in 1968, tip was 50 cents on every car that you parked. So I was making a lot of money in those days. Yeah,
Pockets weighed down by the end of the night.
yeah.
Yeah.
And let me see. Yeah, so I had the part-time job, and then I worked at Ingles, and we decided to buy a house in Bradford. And we paid.
Well, hold on a second
Yeah.
here, if I may. So the family, had you gone back to England? We all came over together, or was it?
All together,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so but you had things lined up, I suppose, like you're renting an apartment.
We had an apartment. It wasn't lined up. Knock
Okay.
on the door, or
Okay, it was pretty
room to
easy.
let, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and that would have been wasn't Stevens Drive in Toronto. It was.
Yeah, no.
Or was it?
Our first stop was north of Bathurst and Wilson, a Jewish area.
Yeah.
And when Jimmy started going to school with a name like Sternberg,
Yeah.
are you one of us? No, we're not one of you. Yeah,
Well, I've had that my whole life.
yeah, I have to. It doesn't bother me at all.
No, who cares? But okay, so a couple of years spent in Toronto. You're working at Inglis.
Yeah.
We
And then
moved
we
to a
got the house in
couple
Bradford.
different places in Toronto, and then we get this place in Bradford. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that was a new house.
It was being built, yeah.
Yeah,
And John Zima was the builder,
Yeah, I remember him.
and we made a lot of. It's a brand new subdivision going up, and our house was not yet complete. And so, I think that we moved in there in September of 72. After moving in, the first thing I did go down to the Legion. There, I joined the Legion on Friday night, September. I forget the date.
And if anybody doesn't know, it's Legion is the Canadian equivalent of the pub, really.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
But you had to be a member.
Yeah.
And because of my military service, I was considered to be a regular member as opposed to an associate member.
Mm-hmm.
If you had not done your military, but your dad had, you were considered to be an associate member.
Mm-hmm.
And so we lived in Bradford for about 17 years. And after 3.5 years, we bought a bigger, better house. And in the old part of town, we had a dormy house that we, including Neil, Every time he goes to Bradford, he wants to look at the house. It was a beautiful house.
Yeah.
We liked it.
Yeah.
I like it now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what else?
I don't know. So explain who
Yeah.
Jim Sternberg was at that time. Like, I mean, that's a big deal to
Well,
come to a new country, but you're obviously a gregarious guy on more or less extrovert side. You wouldn't have had any trouble meeting people, making friends. It was Bradford on Culpin Avenue, especially, was extremely sociable, right?
yes.
It seemed like the whole street
Yes.
knew each other. You
Absolutely.
certainly did. There was only a couple houses where, like, I don't know who lives there
Yeah.
or don't
Yeah.
see them, or
Well,
but it was very sociable. A lot of hanging out at night on porch steps and whatnot.
yes.
You know.
Oh, yeah. Street dancing.
Yeah.
Can
Is
you remember that?
No, not
Yeah.
well.
On Culpin
Maybe
Avenue,
vaguely. Yeah.
where Whitey used to live,
Yeah.
going down the hill on the left-hand side.
Yeah.
Out in the street, he'd be doing the polka and music blaring, bottle of beer going, all that good stuff.
And what kind of I don't know if I'd characterize as culture shock, but when you start hearing things about hockey and Toronto Maple Leafs and all that, I mean, you would never have heard about that in back home, right?
Well, of course, transition is sometimes fairly hard to get used to it,
Yeah.
adapt to it.
Yeah.
But hockey was, nobody played hockey in England. Everybody played soccer, cricket.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we'll get to Church Street, or we're at Church Street now.
Yeah.
And I remember you had a few different jobs through those years. Well, Inglis, of course.
Yeah.
I remember when you drove briefly for FEMA.
FINA.
Yeah. And FINA, sorry, that's
Yeah.
right. And then any other notable jobs up to Englehart?
Yeah. Dominion Pegasus helicopter.
Oh, that's right. That was
I was
interesting.
a purchasing manager for a company. We were the second biggest company in the world with the number of helicopters that we had. I think altogether at that time, I'm talking about 1984-ish, we had about 170 helicopters. Most of them were Bell 206, 207, and 212. We also had Sikorsky and Alouette. Sikorsky is an American helicopter, but the helicopter was invented by General Sikorsky in Poland in the middle 30s, I think. And Alouette, that was a French helicopter. So,
French from France.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So I worked in King City where we had, the name of the company was Dominion Pegasus Helicopters, and I worked for them. And we were part of the Okanagan Helicopter Group, based in Vancouver. So, but the helicopter company, Dominion Pegasus, decided to move to Montreal. Anybody that wanted to move to Montreal, they could do so. I did not.
So that led to working at Englehart.
And then, let me see. Then I got a job as a driver for a company called FINA. And they owned gas stations, not many of them, and that was the beauty of it, because sometimes you could spend 3 hours driving from one gas station to another one. And I made deliveries to Collingwood, to Windsor, to Kingston, like all over the place. Not just me, but we had about 6 or 7 drivers who did the same kind of thing. And we had different routes. Sometimes you'd go to Niagara Falls and any gas station down in that area, as well as sometimes to Collingwood, sometimes to Kingston, even Montreal, and up towards Ottawa too. Like I said, there were not many gas stations, so you could drive for hours at times, before your next delivery, which was just fine. Driving to me was never a chore. It was not work. To me, it was pleasure, especially driving a small van.
Yeah. Okay, but I guess it's interesting that the company Engelhard that you were with was the last stop before you kind of make,
I
you know,
went on my own then.
yeah, you make a life change to do work that you're your own boss
Yeah.
and it's physical. Because from, you know, from that point on, Dad, I just think of you as like you love working
Yeah.
with your body, basically, with your hands,
Yeah.
physical work.
And then I got a job working for a fencing company, Button Fencing.
Yeah.
And Ken Button was my boss, Ken Button. And we went out on jobs putting up different fences, like a tennis court, baseball, farm fences, board fences, any kind of fence you like. So I got into fencing, and one of my first employees was Neil, who
Yeah.
was then a young boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kicking and screaming. I was going to be the next John Lennon, not digging
Yeah.
fence post holes.
And also employed Harold on one particular job, and that was purely by accident. He came to see me on a job that I was doing in Oak Ridges. I remember I had an old woman as a customer, and she had been a nun, and so she had a problem with, I think it might have been an apple tree. No, maybe not, but anyway, it had this big trunk that was at an angle. It was fairly big, like that big, you know, and she had nailed on 2x4s onto the trunk of it, so she could climb on this at an angle like that, maybe to a height of about 15 feet. And she's then about 70 years old. And when she got to the top, she decided, no, this is not for me, she can't cut it down. So she called me. I had an ad in the paper that went something like, man with truck will do whatever.
Yeah.
And this is the kind of ad that I had going for me. And
Well, it took off because it became Man with Truck, MWT Enterprises.
Yes.
I remember
yeah.
you got a, the magnetic sticker that slapped on the side of the truck. And
If I needed
Good to
any
go.
kind of help, like I'm on the job mostly by myself, but a lot of times I go to Legion on the way home, have a couple of beers, and who wants a job? I can give you work for 3 days or whatever, that kind of thing.
that
you know.
right? Okay.
Yeah. And I was never short of workers to give me a hand doing a job.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was great stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so to kind of fast forward as
Yeah.
I'm getting into my sort of later teens, Jimmy's more or less
Okay.
moved on to Toronto. He's
Yeah.
with Marta at the time, and when did the itch start to come that maybe going back to England?
I don't know.
No,
No.
that's so interesting.
We decided to come up to Muskoka.
Okay,
There.
I can edit that.
Yeah.
All right, so
That's
talk
it.
about when you came up to Muskoka.
1988.
Okay.
And we looked at different properties here, including the one that we bought. And the one that we bought, before the sales lady took us in, her name was Diane Litchfield. Later on, at Honda, her son is the service manager. So he and I, anyway, getting back to Diane Litchfield, she said, you are not going to like what you're going to see. This house does not show well. This is our house that we bought. So we go down in the basement. The previous owner, they were still there. They had 2 big dogs, and there was shit all over the place in the basement. It smelled awful. He had 2 little kids at the time. Tyler.
Yep.
He had 2 little kids at the time, but in spite of that, it had 26 acres. It had a big shop, a 2-car garage, and later on, the 26 acres, I turned that into a golf course, as you all know.
Yeah. What a labor of love that was.
I started working there about 33 years ago on clearing the bush and getting a bulldozer in and creating a golf course.
And what's the creation story there? How did we develop the first hole, basically?
Well,
The inspiration
basically,
there.
The inspiration came. Our son Jimmy got married for the second time. He had a big tent out the back in Marquee. And him and his brother-in-law from Calgary Our property at the time was overgrown with trees, hardly any space at all. So with a little bit of a 9-iron or whatever, and a bit of a clear space that I managed to cut the grass on, Chris and Jimmy, they were chipping a ball back and forth, back and forth. This is how I got the idea. What if I cut that tree down and that one there? That would make it play a little longer and maybe play 2 holes instead of just the 1 hole. Well, and so from humble beginnings, I created a 10-hole golf course. And the reason for 10 holes is because one particular hole, if it rained heavily, one hole, one green, would be underwater for a long time. So if that particular hole was wet, we played the 10th hole. In other words, we played 9 holes. And we had an awful lot of fun.
We sure did. A lot of great memories down the years. And explain the each pin on every hole.
Okay. Like I said, we had 9 holes or 10 holes. And every hole had a different flag to it because of our background. We had a Union Jack, we had a Canadian Maple Leaf, American Stars and Stripes, we had a Czech flag because Neil's wife is Czech. We had an Irish flag because a very good friend of mine who's Irish, a Latvian flag, and a Russian flag because
German.
I mentioned it, and a German flag.
Yeah.
And a French flag because we are French Canadian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and Stephanie's Michelle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there, we had all those different flags on every hole. Every hole had a different flag to it.
Yeah.
And what we used to call the finishing flag, that had the Latvian flag on it. And we had a maple leaf right by the road. We'd be banging a ball out there, neighbours be driving past and stop the car and yell at us. What time is tee off time, Jim, tomorrow?
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah, not to mention the odd tourists that come by just because they were so impressed with what you'd done there. And
yeah, one particular time we had a guy across the road from us, bed and breakfast, where the bridge is across the ditch.
Yeah.
Back in there, there was a bed and breakfast, and he came to me. He said, "We had golfed before," and he said to me, "I've got some bed and breakfast people coming in tomorrow from New Zealand. Can we golf on your golf course?" I said to him, basically, I said, on one condition. Yeah, what's the condition? I said, as soon as you get here, the first stop is go in the garage, pick up a beer, and then go to the clubhouse, take your clubs and go and bang your ball.
Yeah. Okay, so many great years there, you know, a lot of get-togethers, a lot of family.
Family tournament in honor of my sister, who died about 11 years ago. And
That's right, that's a good point.
Memorial.
Yeah, Val Memorial.
I think it was Luke's idea to come. I'm pretty sure it was.
Yeah.
Thank you, Luke.
Yeah. And it's always been nice that, you know, Harold and the family were down the road. So, you know, saw a lot of get-togethers up here with the family over the years.
Yes.
So, unfortunately, 2 years ago now?
2.5.
Very hard decision to sell that. I mean, it was a big property, a lot of work, you know, that you had to do. And as we all get older, it doesn't get easier. Well, so here we are now in this setting. Yeah. And you've adjusted. Yeah,
like Neil said about the transition between owning a big chunk of land and all the responsibilities that go with maintaining a golf course. Enjoyed by me, extremely enjoyable, doing what I've done the last 30 odd years or more. Creating a golf course and people appreciating it. And I remember one time I'm golfing with a guy called Paul Wadham. He had a place just down the road, but he also had a place in the city. So he's sucking back a beer. His phone rings. "What are you doing, Paul?" "I'm drinking a beer and golfing." "Where are you golfing?" "A neighbour of mine got a golf course." The guy on the phone couldn't believe it.
Yeah. I know. Anytime I mention it to people, it's like, they couldn't believe it. So, I don't know. We're nearing the end here, but
Yes.
I don't know. Is there anything you want to say about, you know, life you've lived? And it's been a lot of interesting twists and turns, an incredible childhood story that, I mean, you know, world's full of war. It's always will be thus. But, you know, he came out of a unique situation and, you know, moved forward in the most interesting way that here we are in a beautiful part of the world. And really, that's your impetus there that brought that about.
Well, I don't have to say anything at all. You've said it all.
Well, what do you want to say to the viewers? These are all your extended family here, and that all obviously think of you as the patriarch of all.
Okay. I want you to know that I'm extremely proud of every one of you. You have all done well. Every one of you, and I'm proud of you. And I'm extremely fortunate and blessed to what Neil had to say just now, from humble beginnings to this. I am here sucking back a beer, 89 years old, and loving it. It took a while to get used to apartment dwelling, but I have got used to it. I have nothing better to do than drink a beer. So, I hope it doesn't offend anybody, but I want to say thanks to the big guy.